Bowing her head in defeat, Queen Alicent surrendered the keys to the castle and ordered her knights and men-at-arms to lay down their swords. "The city is yours, princess, but you will not hold it long. The rats play when the cat is gone, but my son Aemond will return with fire and blood." This is Alicent Hightower as presented in Fire and Blood, and this is Alicent Hightower as seen in House of the Dragon. They share the same name, however they are not the same person. Let's discuss why. After the disastrous end to Game of Thrones, everyone assumed that HBO would abandon the world of Ice and Fire, assuming that the franchise had no viability going forward, with a Jon Snow series being worked on for a brief time before it was abandoned, and after the filmed and scrapped pilot for an original prequel series, that seemed to be the case. Until HBO decided to move forward with an adaptation of Fire and Blood, House of the Dragon, which premiered in August of 2022. And to everyone's surprise, it was not just good, it was excellent. Season 1 performed a miracle by jump-starting the heart of this dying franchise and exceeded nearly everyone's expectations for what an adaptation of The Dance of the Dragons could be. Moments like the maiming of Aemond and Viserys' Last Supper have cemented themselves as top moments in the whole franchise, but most importantly, there was a genuine renewed optimism for this world by the end of the final episode, which unfortunately could not be said for its second season. Despite almost unanimous praise for the first 4 episodes, the latter half of season 2 really dropped the ball in many fans' eyes, mainly due to the fact that the studio removed the final 2 episodes from the series, leading to the writers having to rewrite episode 8 to act as the season's finale, which, unfortunately, they could not. Sentiment for the series also dropped due to some bizarre creative decisions, with an intentional divergence from the source material being abundantly clear by episode 8. With 2 years to stew on an anticlimactic finale, along with recent news seemingly confirming a fracturing of the relationship between George R.R. Martin and the showrunner Ryan Condal due to creative differences, there is a growing concern that seasons 3 and 4 will go down the path of the latter half of Thrones. The conversation around faithfulness to the source material is a complex one. When you are adapting a story from page to screen, there are always going to be deviations from the source, and House of the Dragon is no exception. Whilst most changes can be attributed to tightening up the story in order for it to fit into an episodic format, some of these decisions outright improve on the source material. Nearly all characters in the show are given substantially more depth than their book counterparts, and most of them work, Viserys being the standout among fans and even George himself. But if you had to pick the one character who underwent the most change from source to screen, then there is one obvious choice: Alicent Hightower, which, interestingly enough, seems to be the most controversial also. So let's analyze the how and why one of the most interesting and well-written characters at the show's start has become the most confusing and downright baffling by season 2's end, and why it worries me deeply about the upcoming 3rd season. In Fire and Blood, Alicent is portrayed through the detached lens of unreliable narrators. She is older than Rhaenyra by nearly a decade, marries King Viserys while Rhaenyra is still a child, and never shares any meaningful personal bond with her. Her motivations are simple: to advance her children's claim and secure her family's power. While she is intelligent and influential, the text offers little insight into her emotional life. The book's format, deliberately written as an in-universe history, reduces Alicent to her actions and public reputation. As a result, she often reads as a calculating and somewhat cold political operator, closer to an archetype than a fully realized character. However, when adapting for television, a deliberate decision was made to age down the character so that her initial relationship with Rhaenyra is one of close childhood friendship rather than the cold, jealous stepmother archetype. This was an incredibly good creative decision. By giving these two characters an established history together, it made the story far more compelling. Their shared girlhood creates an emotional foundation for the conflict that follows, transforming the Dance of the Dragons from a purely dynastic struggle into a deeply personal tragedy. When their friendship fractures, it does not merely signal a political division, but the collapse of mutual trust, intimacy, and youthful innocence. Season 1 of the show expanded her character by exploring how her age and position, despite being the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, still leave her often feeling powerless. She is not introduced as ambitious or manipulative, but as obedient, anxious, and eager to please, particularly her father Otto Hightower, whose political ambitions she is groomed to serve. Her marriage to Viserys is depicted as a political maneuver she was unaware was even happening, a duty she never chose. The series repeatedly emphasizes how little control she has over her own fate. She is traded into marriage, expected to produce heirs, and forced to navigate a court where the wishes of her father and her husband come at odds. To cope with her position, she clings to the faith of the Seven and holds traditional views of honor in high regard. To the show writer's credit, much of Season 2 felt like a natural extension of the character as presented in Season 1. Given the inner conflict the writers decided to give her, it only made sense why Alicent would feel very conflicted and oftentimes disturbed by the actions that the Greens had to make. Of course, she ultimately desired for her family to emerge victorious in the end. Her loyalty was something viewers wouldn't question, which is relatable. In this sense, the show's Alicent is not a departure from Martin's themes, but an evolution of them. Fire and Blood documents the never-ending series of events of history. House of the Dragon exposes the human cost behind each and every decision, most effectively shown through Alicent's character. That is until the final scene of Season 2, where the writers seem to take all of that work and, instead of taking her character to the natural conclusion of her arc, decide to take her in a completely different direction. In this final scene, Alicent sneaks onto Dragonstone to meet with Rhaenyra, seeking to strike a deal offering her a path to victory without a siege in return for her children's safety. When Prince Aemond leaves King's Landing, she promises that the city gates will be opened, allowing her to take King's Landing with minimal bloodshed. Rhaenyra, however, makes clear that these terms are not sufficient, insisting that Aegon must be put to death for his usurpation. The moment hangs heavily between them, laden with the memory of their former friendship and the destruction wrought by their rivalry. After a long silence, she gives a small, defeated nod, accepting Rhaenyra's terms, and in this decision alone, the writers have taken all Alicent's character work throughout both seasons and completely destroyed it. Alicent in this show has been defined by two forces, a sense of duty and motherhood. Even when manipulated by her father, constrained by her position, or morally compromised by court politics. Her motivation has always centered on protecting her children and upholding the moral system she genuinely believes in. She supports her son's claim to the throne, not because she desires to keep her power or to hurt Rhaenyra, but because she believes her children's lives are under constant threat. Whilst Alicent has become increasingly alienated from her sons, particularly Aemond, with his unapologetic desire for brutality, her devotion to her children's survival never disappeared. In Season 2, her love for Aegon and Helena became stronger after feeling tremendous guilt after believing to be responsible for both her son's grievous injury and her grandson's brutal murder. Her agreement to sacrifice Aegon feels not like a painful evolution of her character, but an abandonment of her defining trait. The scene does not show a gradual psychological transformation, nor does it provide a convincing moral reckoning that would justify such a choice. Alicent does not argue, bargain, refute Rhaenyra's dressing down of her, or even openly mourn her grandson, whose murder was ordered by the woman she is standing across the room from. She simply accepts Rhaenyra's condition with a simple nod. We are asked to believe that a woman who endured years of humiliation, manipulation, and political warfare to secure her children's safety would now relinquish her son's life with barely a word. This scene, and the clear implication that Alicent will in fact simply cede everything to Rhaenyra and beg for her mercy in Season 3, has not only destroyed her character, but severely damaged the entire thematic structure of the show. One can only hope that after she returns to King's Landing, Alicent realizes that Rhaenyra is out for blood, and actually finds the Constitution to look past her own guilt to ensure the survival of her family. Hopefully the writers can prove me wrong on this one, however, I won't be getting my hopes up. If you have made it this far into the video, then I would like to thank you for sticking around. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, I would greatly appreciate if you would leave a like. I aim to create breakdowns and analysis of all things A Song of Ice and Fire and Middle-earth on this channel. I have a ton of videos planned for the near future, but if you have any video ideas or suggestions, please let me know in the comment section. Again, thank you for watching and see you next time.